Hi there, Doug here. One of the greatest pushes in development over the last few years is bringing AI to help developers build code. We've all got Copilot. We've all asked GPT to help us optimize a code or figure out why some of our code isn't compiling or throwing an error. But that's always limited. It's little bits of code already in the IDE. We're making small changes. Blitzy's interesting is that it promises to build enterprise software using AI outside of the IDE. The way they promise that that's going to work is because they have an infinite code context. They can read in your entire code base and they will build code and it will develop new code using the same patterns and conventions that's used in your code today. That's pretty exciting. Let's see how it works. If you're in the AI space, you've probably heard of MLFlow. It's got 21,000 stars, about 1 million lines of code. Let's look at MLFlow inside Blitzy and let's add a new feature to it. The feature we're going to add is from this open issue where they want to automatically track Git metadata without using MLFlow projects or recipe. This is good just for testing, so you can still track it without making a full project. And so this whole issue is right here. Let's run this and try to create this feature inside Blitzy. What we're going to do is we're going to now import MLFlow into my Blitzy account. So I'm going to create a new project. It's a new project for Blitzy, but it's an existing product. So we're going to call this create the project. And then we import the code from GitHub. So we've connected our GitHub repository, connected our GitHub organization, the repo and the branch, and we hit continue. What Blitzy is going to do now is it's going to ingest the code. And this is going to take probably about a day. It's going to read all of the code, understand what the code does. And to show that it's done that, it's going to create a detailed technical specification of where your code is today. It's the current technical specification. Here's what that looks like. You can see it's a really long document. It's highly detailed with an overview, stakeholders, the systems, the scope, product requirements, and these requirements are based on the code. Like, this is what needs to be in MLFlow because that's what's already been built. We've got diagrams, lots of details. And if you are actually building a feature on an existing project, you'd want to go through here, make sure that everything in here is absolutely perfectly correct. We've all used AIs and we've got a bad prompt. The result that comes out isn't very good. So taking the time at the beginning to make sure that this is a high quality technical specification of your existing code bases is going to go far to make sure that the code that's generated by Blitzy is high quality and does what you want it to do. Now that we've looked at our technical specification and edited to make sure it's complete and accurate, we can now begin building with Blitzy. And there are a bunch of different ways you can build with Blitzy. In this case, we're adding a new feature, right? We're adding that feature from the GitHub issue. When we click that, it's going to ask us what feature we want to add. There are a bunch of templates to help you build the prompt. Again, you want to build a highly detailed prompt here so that the code that's written by the agents is accurate and complete. Here's the prompt guide for this new feature in MLFlow. And what we're doing is there are a couple things you need to do here. Is Blitzy tends to be very enthusiastic and aggressive in what it wants to do and what changes. So what we're saying is we're adding a new feature, but we're minimizing changes to the existing code base. Stay on that target, stay on target, only build what needs to be done. Make only the necessary additions and modifications. Don't optimize any of the other stuff. Don't look for those shiny objects elsewhere in the code that could be better. Nobody's code is perfect. Let's focus on this bit, and then we can focus on those shiny bits later. This is the project overview is essentially a summary of what's in that GitHub issue. Here's what we need to do. Here's why we need to do it. And what are some of the scenarios that a user might actually use this? So we're doing some testing. We don't want to use project or recipe. So we have to manually track all of the information. Here's some examples of how that might be done. What are the boundaries? What do we not want Blitzy to touch? What should be unchanged? What's in scope? What's out of scope? How should this be done? And what sort of tests should be run? How should we test? how should we test that our new feature was actually created properly and valid, and that the code inside MLFlow is unchanged and still working. So we have a bunch of tests. And then finally, we've got a clause. The last page is, again, don't change the stuff that doesn't need to be changed. We are only adding this feature. You don't need to go wild. We know we've got other bugs. We have other problems in the code. We're just fixing this one right now. We put that prompt into here and we ask Blitzy to generate the code. In this case, it took about 2 hours and 11 minutes. We take that technical specification, we plop it into here, and we say update the tech spec. At this point, Blitzy takes our code and update the technical specification. In this case, it took about 50 minutes, and we get an updated tech spec incorporating the feature change that we wanted. Here's the updated technical specification, the future technical specification we call it. And you can see there's a chapter 0 walking through all of the changes that are going to be made because of this feature request, because of this change in the code. And it walks through it. And again, this can be edited. So if you're not happy with what Blitzy did here, we can edit this manually and update it to fit exactly what needs to be built. In the existing part of the technical spec, you'll see these purple highlights. And this is where changes are made in the existing technical specification. And again, we can edit this. If we're happy with it, leave it. If we want to change it a little bit, we can update it here before any code is written. So we're looking through this whole thing. We're looking at all of the changes that Blitzy is planning to make. And then if we're good with it, we can have Blitzy start building the code and firing up the agents to write the code. Now, writing the code took about 2 hours, about 2 hours and 11 minutes. And we got a pull request right into GitHub. And so Blitzy opens the PR with all the commits, with all the file changes. We can see there's 7 commits. There were 4 files changed. And so what we can do now is we can look at this, analyze the code, and make sure that the things that we asked Blitzy to do, that it actually did and created the right feature without any errors. Now, the cool part about this, when we look at the files, the project guide documents what Blitzy did in the code base. So you can feel confident in the work that is done. In this case, we can see that the project is complete and production ready. It's 100% code complete with 0 breaking changes, and all of the testing says it's ready to go. Of course, take this with a grain of salt, test it yourself before you push it live, but look at all of this, read all of this. It walks through the implementation. Here's what we did. Here we tested it, 100% test, 100% pass rate with the 6 tests here, 3 tests here, live environment results. The requirements that were given, were they met? Yes, they were. Here's the implementation. Here's some examples. It does an assessment of the code that was written, 5 stars across the board, and it shows 100% complete. Blitzy aims for 80% complete. It's working really hard to give enterprise quality code. It doesn't always finish the job and leaves about 20% left. That 20% is for the developers to go back in and finish that. And it actually, if it isn't 100% ready, it will walk through all of the things that still need to be done with estimates on how much time each one of those additional features or changes needs to be done. A lot of it's configuration, libraries, that last little bit of implementation that you need to do just to get it over the line and production ready. It walks through the work that it did. In the 2 hours and 11 minutes this ran, it estimates that that would have been about 24 hours of a developer's time, about 3 days of work just to get this feature written, tested, validated, integrated, and documented. In this case, the AI agents did it for us. We wrote the prompt. We worked on other stuff for 2 hours, got an email that a PR was ready, went and looked at it. We can now look at this. Blitzy saying that it's ready for deployment. And we're ready to go. But obviously, as a developer, you probably want to go through the code, analyze it, make sure that it's doing what Blitzy says it's going to do. Probably run some tests on your own just to feel safe. And then once you're comfortable with that, you can merge that PR and go live. Now, I think this is really cool because as a developer, you're no longer sitting there grinding through 24 hours worth of work, 3 days worth of work. You have to write a really detailed functional guide, good product requirements, good project requirements. Tell Blitzy exactly what you want it to do, then look at what it's proposing to change, and then couple hours later, you have that code. And that's pretty exciting. It's going to speed up the way developers work. For those features that you don't want to do, you send it off to Blitzy and you can work on a bug. Maybe you're working on another Blitzy prompt for another feature, but you're not working through all of these bits to get the code written. There's a lot of talk in the press that AI is going to get rid of developers. It's not going to get rid of developers. It's just going to change the way developers work. You're going to create the prompts. You're going to get the code. You're going to review it, fix what needs to be fixed, and then push it live. But by saving you days and weeks worth of work on some of the grunt work, it's going to speed up the way developers and developer teams produce code and create results. I'm excited to see the other things we can do inside Blitzy, so stay tuned to this channel for more information. Thanks for watching.